Hello everyone, my name is James and I'm known in the community as Zamiel. Welcome to my presentation about Afterbirth Plus bugs and Lua bindings. While Afterbirth Plus is great in some aspects, it is missing a few important things. Today I'm going to showcase some serious bugs in the game that are still present in the latest version of Afterbirth Plus. Partly, this presentation is a plea to Edmund and Tyrone to fix these bugs in the game for the betterment of everyone. But that's not all. Here's a quote from Edmund from the official bindingofisaac.com release announcement. And I quote, "The whole point of Afterbirth Plus was to hand off the game to the community, who at this point know the game better than I do." And I couldn't agree more. I think Edmund really hit the nail on the head there. While Nicalis fixing these bugs would be great, what's even more important is that the Lua bindings should empower us to fix the bugs ourselves. But unfortunately, that isn't currently the case. So the main point of the presentation is a plea to Edmund and Tyrone to expand the Lua bindings, because there's some holes in the ones that are currently released. So first, here's a little bit about me and why you should pay attention to what I'm talking about. Speedrunners log an absurd amount of hours in the game that they choose to speedrun, and they usually find a lot of bugs along the way, and the Binding of Isaac is no exception. Ever since Rebirth, I've been known for testing game mechanics on my stream, so I'm pretty well versed in the underpinnings of the game. And I'm also the author of several mods. The most popular is called the Judas D6 mod, or JuD6 for short. One of the goals of the mod is to fix as many bugs as I can that have gone unpatched in the vanilla game. So let's talk about, I think the biggest bug is floor generation. Floor generation is of course one of the most important things to get right in a roguelike game. And Edmund made a ton of new rooms for Afterbirth, but due to how the floor generator chooses rooms, some rooms he made have never been shown to players. And here's an example of one such room in the cathedral. So how do we know this? Well, speedrunners have been playing the game every day for about a year now, and most of us have every room in the entire game memorized. And none of us have ever seen this room, so we can, it's safe to say that this room doesn't appear in the game. As a modder, I was able to alter the cathedral by changing the difficulty value on other rooms in the cathedral. So fundamentally, there's something wrong going on there. Around 6 months ago, several speedrunners started going back to Rebirth for the purposes of breaking old world records. And when we did, we noticed that there are rooms that exist in the base game that never appear in Afterbirth. One such Sheol room is pictured here. This is further evidence that there's some big underlying problem in the floor generation algorithm. A disparate but related issue has to do with Afterbirth libraries. Edmund designed 6 brand new library rooms for the Afterbirth expansion, but none of them actually show up in the game. As an engineer, the first step that I would take towards tackling this complicated problem would be to gather more information. So with the Afterbirth Plus Lua bindings, I was hoping to make a mod that would simply generate 1 million floors one after the other, and write out all of the floors generated to a log file. Then I could parse the log file and find out exactly which rooms are being included and which rooms are being excluded, which would be a very valuable tool. But unfortunately, I can't do this because there is no floor bindings. Ultimately, Nicalis could fix this stuff themselves, but again, that's not the point of Afterbirth Plus. I would rather that the modding community come together to actually make a floor generation algorithm that is bug-free and open source, so that we could use it ourselves in our projects. But again, we can't do that because they didn't include any Lua bindings for floor stuff. Let's move on from floor stuff onto the next bug that I will be showcasing. One feature of the game that we think Edmund intended is to have certain rooms have a chance to have different things in them. The most common example of this is the following super secret room. Most of you will probably be familiar with this room. It's fairly common, and it always has a mom's hand in it. And what is implied in the game code for the room is that there should be a random chance of the following 6 entities appearing. a mom's hand, an error room keeper, a shopkeeper, a random trinket, a little battery, and a ragman. I call this feature entity stacking because only one entity can exist per square, but you can set multiple entities per square and assign various probabilities of each entity occurring. So unfortunately, this feature is bugged. It just doesn't work. It always chooses the first entity that is placed and ignores all of the rest of them. So that is why in the game you always see mom's hand. So this has gone unpatched for I think about 3 years. Edmund also created several new rooms for Afterbirth Plus that contain this feature, but still in the current version of Afterbirth Plus, we expected this to be fixed, but it's still unfixed. Now, I would love to write a mod myself to fix all of these various rooms, to make it so that to what it quote-unquote was intended to be. But we can't do that either because there's no Lua binding for getting the raw room data. So we have no way to know if multiple entities were placed on some tile or not. One other issue with Afterbirth Plus that is easily fixable with the current mod tools. So this is less of an issue, but I would feel remiss if I did not highlight it here, as it is a pretty major bug. One feature of the treasure room pool is that all items in it are removed from the pool on site. This is not the case with other pools, but it is the case for the treasure room pool. And the following snippet is from the current Afterbirth Plus itempools.xml file. And as you can see, because of the decrease by weight decrementation, all of the Afterbirth Plus items were mistakenly set to function like shop pool items. This mistake doesn't just apply to the treasure room. As you can see, it also applies to the devil room pool. It also applies to every other pool in the game where Afterbirth Plus items got added. And so this will cause issues where Afterbirth Plus items will D6 roll into themselves, which is, in my eyes, probably unintended. Beyond the major bugs, there's a ton of small bugs in the game. However, Afterbirth Plus does not allow subclassing or overriding existing classes. This means that we can't change any existing code, and we can't use existing stuff as a base for our own stuff. For example, one thing that I've always planned to do in Afterbirth Plus is to fix the Isaac fight. The beams of light that occur in Phase 2 are randomly placed on the screen, and they're not telegraphed at all. So essentially, they're unavoidable damage. In Afterbirth Plus, I was hoping to fix this by changing the AI to make the beams of light not appear where Isaac is standing. So it sounds pretty simple, right? But doing this is only somewhat possible. I would have to make a brand new Isaac entity, copy over all of the artwork, all of the animations, and then I would have to code my own AI to emulate the existing AI. And then finally, I would have to manually replace the entity in the room. Since I don't have access to the existing AI, this would be extremely time-consuming and difficult. And there's no guarantee that what I create would be an exact replica. It's just my pseudo-emulation, my best imitation of the Isaac fight. And all of this would be just for the purposes of fixing this one little bug. Okay, so editing entities is out. But what about fixing pedestal item bugs? For example, one bug that has gone unfixed in Afterbirth is that Dr. Fetus and Tech X synergize in such a way that the game mistakenly thinks that the ring that is created is a Maw of the Void ring. And essentially you get a bunch of black hearts for no reason. So unfortunately, we can't edit the code on any of these existing items. So fixing this bug is impossible. So remember that the game is supposed to be handed off to us, but we would have to rely on Nicalis to do this. There's plenty more bugs in the game, but I think it's important to finish this presentation by highlighting some other major holes in the current bindings. Firstly, the biggest thing that stands out is that there's no binding for player stats. This means that we can't have custom items affect player stats. Currently, people are working around this by making their items give pill effects, such as range up, but obviously the flexibility with this is somewhat limited. We really should be able to make items that grant stats. It seems like this is the one thing that people are most furious about so far. And it isn't as important in stats, but bindings are missing for curses as well. In terms of game design, one of the biggest complaints with the game are the curses. So I'm sure a lot of players and modders were looking forward to customizing the existing curses or adding new curses. And unfortunately, we can't do that. Another thing missing is the map, the mini-map. If we wanted to create a new custom room type, we wouldn't be able to because of the lack of the floor generation bindings, as I touched on earlier. But even if there was, we wouldn't be able to draw it on the minimap. Additionally, it would be really useful to know if the map was minimized or not for the purposes of drawing extra HUD elements on the screen. Beyond the map, there's other things that are missing. In preparation for Afterbirth Plus, I've been working for months on the infrastructure for a multiplayer racing mod that would allow players to race each other in real time. And I was hoping that I could add a new option to the main menu called Race. And then the user could go in there and I could program a chat lobby for people to type to each other. So key bindings and menu bindings are necessary for this, but there don't appear to be any. So I think that Nicalis should at the very least consider adding key bindings because they should be very, very easy to add. So these have been the five major issues that I wanted to cover. I think that it's important to say that I'm extremely thankful to Edmund and Nicalis for creating this beautiful game that has given millions of people hours of entertainment. And please don't misconstrue my criticism as anything but constructive. And I do want the game to be the best it can be. So in conclusion, I've gone over some bugs that I think should be fixed for everyone, if Nicalis has the time to do that. But more importantly, I think Edmund and Tyrone, please consider adding a little bit more on the Lua bindings front, because as Edmund said in his blog post, we are ready to be handed the torch, but right now that torch is not burning very strongly. Thank you.